What is the cost for you?
Quite sad, but it's probably just happiness. My siblings and family that have just given up so much because of that thing that we're so focused and driven towards. I feel like I'm not happy until I do it.
What would a 10-year-old Liam say to you today, do you think?
You're pretty cool, man. Probably something like that. Like, what's it like driving a Formula 1 car? Which is crazy because that's the question I hate the most. What I get is the most generic question. What's it like driving a Formula 1 car? And I think that's what I would ask myself as a 10-year-old kid. Yeah.
What would you say to that 10-year-old kid?
Well, already what my dad was telling me is just that's for me been the most important thing, that if you believe in something and you work hard enough for it, that you can honestly achieve anything you want.
What would you say to your parents and your family that you may have already told them, but you can never say it too often?
Thank you. Oh, it's just, yeah, it's thank you for, like, I feel like I'll never be able to almost repay the amount of sacrifice that, and it's not just about just money. My parents found this card recently, it's like a year ago, that my brother had written my dad. My brother's 2 years younger than me. We found this card that he'd written when he was like 5 years old or 6 years old. And the card was like, "Dear Dad, if I like racing, will you spend more time with me, like Liam?"
Oh, mate.
And like that, like honestly, like for my siblings and family that have just given up so much, like time with my dad, time with, and never going on holiday, never doing anything, just always, yeah.
Oh my God, that's actually like, that does actually get you, you know?
Yeah.
Oh,
I have an amazing family, so.
and when you saw that, what did you say to your brother?
I just, sorry, man. He now looks at it and laughs and thinks it's funny and stuff like that. But I think back to every single weekend being away. So, yeah.
Whether it is relationships or whether it is your own mental clarity, like what is the cost for you of this life?
It sounds kind of quite sad, but it's probably just happiness, I think. People probably think you're a lot happier because of, the position I'm in. Don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't understand how lucky I am to be here, but because of that thing that we're so focused and driven towards, I feel like I'm not happy until I do it or until I achieve it. So for me, it's probably just overall happiness. I have happy moments for sure, like it's not that I'm not happy all the time, but it's overall in life, at the moment.
Your dream is to be Formula 1 world champion. But that doesn't control the quality of the car, the quality of the opposition, whether you're on form or not, whether it rains on a day when, we've seen world titles get won and lost by things totally out of control of a driver.
Yeah.
You can't put your happiness in the hands of something that you don't control, which is becoming a Formula 1 world champion. I
don't think I can really look at it like that.
Right.
I think I can't really afford to look at it like that. Until it either does or doesn't happen, I won't know. I think until that happens, this is how sort of I feel like I'll always feel. It's how I've always felt since I was young, at least.
You just have to be aware of the cost and happy to pay the price.
Yeah.
You are?
Which I totally am, yeah.
Obviously, you've spent so much time around these elite sports individuals and teams. It's funny to know whether to fully commit and leave no margin for error is actually the fastest and best way to do it, or whether to have some freedom and enjoyment is the best way to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's always like, the more you enjoy it, the better you perform. It's like the classic.
Yeah, but no one allows themselves.
It's impossible. It's not impossible. I think you have to reach a certain point. Someone like Lewis or even Max could probably, because they've achieved, what they set out to do. But when you haven't, I don't think, no matter how good you are training your mind or thinking about stuff, I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can convince yourself to just purely enjoy something, for me, and not think about just the amount, like I said, the amount of sacrifice, the amount of stuff behind this, the importance of it. I definitely try, but there's always pressure. There's always, you can't get rid of that.
So you say you try. Give us some examples of how you, because it sounds quite draining that if you're thinking about that sacrifice of others.
Yeah.
So how do you sort of try and square that paradox?
I think, gratitude's a big part of it. So being grateful for where I came from, obviously I'm very lucky, very fortunate to be in this position. And from New Zealand, it's just really hard. Like my best mate is somebody that is also a racing driver. We grew up racing each other, and but he just hasn't been as fortunate as I have. And so I spend a lot of time with him, but he's somebody that constantly reminds me that, he's there's absolutely zero jealousy from him, which, is honestly I just love that about him. But yeah, for me, like knowing that he just didn't get the same opportunities, but I did.
Yeah.
I just have to be grateful, because it's so easy to just get used to what you're doing, and like I'll complain about the smallest thing and then be like, wait a second, still pretty sick, like to be doing this.
Your dad early on, when you had a tough start in your karting career, and you didn't, am I right? You didn't win a race in your entire first season?
First year of racing.
And your dad going, I don't think you're good enough for this.
Well, he would tell me, I'd come in basically and be like, dude, Dad, the kart sucks. Like my first go-kart had a rainbow steering wheel. This thing was like, it was not a good kart. It was very, very old, and the engines were just ones that came with it. They weren't, karting now is like, you have to have like the best of the best. And this thing literally came with what it came with. And I ran this for a year, and yeah, I just ran around the back, literally fighting to just race anybody. Even like I look back now, so grateful for that year, because when I got good gear, the racecraft that I had versus kids around me was so different, honestly, versus like a kid that I grew up with that started with the best and just didn't have the same when it came to a last lap one-on-one dice. That's stuff that, I got from that year. Not that he knew that he was doing that for me.
Do you not think? 'Cause
No,
I was
he
actually
didn't.
wondering, I was like, is his dad just so incredible as some sort of sports psychologist that he gave his son a shit cart and then filled his brain with doubt so that if he got through that, it would have built you.
It did, but he didn't know it. Honestly, he didn't know.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure, because he would tell me, I know Liam, I know it's bad, but we can't afford it and stuff like this. And then one day he obviously just got sick of my complaining, and basically bought these two engines. These like two, won a couple of titles, got these two engines, and I remember when we put them on for a qualifying of this big race. And when I say like had come from running last, like literally last, put these engines on for qualifying, and I remember looking at my dad and him like looking at me kind of like, this is where we find out, kind of like that moment. And I went out and qualified pole.
One thing we talk about constantly on this show is that high performance rarely comes from one big moment. It comes from the culmination of small decisions made consistently over a long period of time. Micro habits, getting your mindset right. And increasingly, I've realized that this applies to your money as well as your life. How do you put systems in place that quietly work for you in the background? Well, that's where platforms like XTB are really interesting for me. They've just launched a cash ISA and stocks and shares ISA where new customers can currently earn 6% interest, which includes a 2% boost for the first 90 days. You get tax-free growth, daily interest, flexible withdrawals, no account management fees, and access to over 8,400 stocks and ETFs on their platform. And if you open an account and make your first deposit within 7 days, you'll also receive a free stock to start investing. Learn more at xtb.com/en/join/high performance and use code HPP when you sign up. Capital at risk, investment values can rise or fall. Tax treatment depends on your individual circumstances and ISA regulations, which may change. Limited free stock availability, 2% ISA rate boost for 90 days. New clients only, T's and C's apply.
Where did that resilience and that confidence in your own ability come from? That even when you come in last, you still believe with the right opportunities, I can do this.
I think that comes from my parents, because, when you look at if you went back to, 6-year-old me starting go-karts and looked at, first of all, my family with absolutely zero experience in motorsport. My dad watched Formula One a little bit, watched Vet Supercars, and that was probably it, but had no understanding. So through the early years of go-karting, he's literally learning to tune engines and stuff like this. He would stand on a corner, we'd go testing, and we did test more than anybody, but we'd go out there, it'd be a wet day, and somebody told him that it was a good idea for me to run on slicks. So he would, that's what we'd do. And I'd go out there on my go-kart and he'd stand on a corner and tell me, this is where you got to brake. This is where you have to brake, where I'm standing. And as a kid, obviously, if your dad tells you that, you're just going to do that. So I would, and he would just keep taking a step. Again, this is all stuff like I find out afterwards, but he would just keep taking a step until literally I would fire off the end of the straight and
found your limit,
and that's the limit. And then I would start breaking there, and stuff like that was what we'd do growing up. But he gave me the mindset, because my dad is one of the hardest working people that I know, and watching him as a kid growing up, working with the work ethic that he had. And he would tell me that if you work hard enough for something, since I was very young, if you work hard enough for something, that you can achieve it. And there's so much negativity in New Zealand, especially, and Australia and that part of the world where if you're a kid, like I go to a go-kart track now and kids, want photos and autographs and stuff like that. And I'll ask them, what do you want to race? And they, honestly, a 7-year-old kid will tell me, oh, I want to be a Formula 1 driver like you, but it's too hard, it's too impossible. My dad told me it's too expensive. And I'm like, you're 7 years old. You can't, as much as something is very hard and very unrealistic, I feel like it's a terrible mindset. That's where I feel lucky that my parents told me if I wanted to do something and I worked hard enough for it. And that just stuck with me, honestly, through everything. My moment of meeting one of my heroes, I said I want to be a Formula 1 driver, and he told me that it's, oh, dude, you can't do that these days.
And they were a Formula 1 driver at the time?
They weren't a Formula 1 driver, but
they were a pro.
They were a pro driver, yeah.
Pro driver.
And I was 13 years old going into my first racing season of cars, out of go-karts. I just won a $20,000 scholarship to race this Formula V car in New Zealand, Formula First car. And yeah, but I remember just not even caring a little bit. He told me that and I was just like, oh, okay. Didn't faze me at all. It didn't change anything. It wasn't like he told me that and I was like, oh, that sucks. I just didn't care.